Hello, hello. Here we go again. More animation. So let's see here. Today is the 18th of June, and nice warm day here in sunny Los Angeles, California. And last time I was talking to you about how far um, you need to go when you're working on your scene to get it to a place where you're happy with that the overall setup and everything of your scene is working. Whoops. Oh, hang on a second there. We need to move it around. Whoops. That's funny. All right. Let's get this back down here. Oh, that's interesting. It's just kind of moving on its own here. Let's see if we can get some clarity here. All right, there we go. Okay, so this is where we are now. I was talking about follow through on some things. I was talking about making sure you have as many drawings as you need to have before you start working on timing. And I talked a little bit about timing last time, wherein I mentioned that the timing is something that you can adjust now because we have we have the ability to look at pencil tests, line tests quickly. You don't need to necessarily concern yourself too much about timing in detail, that is, until you get enough drawings that as you flip those drawings, you can see an overall construction of your scene. You can see your scene working. The timing then could be something that you can adjust visually. You can decide if certain areas are too slow or certain areas are too fast. And so I mentioned that you could shoot all of your drawings, say on 4s or 6s or something like that, especially in the initial run through. Well, we've added a lot of drawings to get to this point. So when you animate, generally you're going to wider poses first and you're starting to break things down. But you think more in terms of how you're going to get from one drawing to the next, in terms of how the character's changes or how the character's reactions become more solidified as you go along. So now at this point, I believe we determined on the last pass through that I think we felt that the timing was working pretty good, or the overall feel of it was pretty good. So at this point now, you can start doing in-betweens to sort of smooth everything out. So then, when you go up to your timeline here, and you look to see where you started, and you see how many drawings you've got held. In your first drawing here, this first drawing is held for 6 frames, and then these drawings are on 2s. So I would say there isn't really much of a need to add any in-betweens in here necessarily. Now, when the character gets to here, we're holding 8 frames, which is fine. And then we start to look over to here. So I'd say this area in here probably could use some in-betweens. Now right here, this is a 4-frame hold. So I would say you probably want to break this up a little bit. So we'll go over here and we will do duplicate split halfway, which basically means that what it's going to do, it's going to split that 4 frames so that you have two frame drawings that are the same. And I'll turn the light on here, or the onion skin on. And since we're going into that drawing, I'll say this latter drawing could be, we could start to in between here. So I'm going to bring this back up to a full size so it's easier for me to see the change in the drawing. Okay, so now I'm on that particular drawing that I'm going to change. So here I'll do the in-between, so I'll start to show his eyes starting to open. Or both eyes starting to open here. And then on the eyebrow, I can move the eyebrow up. And I will use the select tool here to grab this eyebrow and actually move it. I say I'm of the opinion that anything that saves you time and work is something that you should use. You know, if you've made a drawing and you're doing an in between, there really, if you know, if in fact you can um, copy, paste, move things, why not do it? You know, I don't see anything wrong with that. So boom, boom, he starts to open his eyes here. So now he's starting to open his mouth more here. There's a little bit of a hold here between here and here. So what we could do here is we could, well, we got a couple of choices here. We could put a drawing in between here to in between, letting the hole stay the same length. Or we could use some of this hold in the previous drawing here to get to here. So like, right, for instance, this drawing is held 10 frames. We could, let's see, if we're going to go from here to here, I'd say, you know, you want to maybe have one or two drawings in there. So I think maybe this look might need to be validated. So as you're looking, ding, 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 he looks, and then he goes into this. Now we could slowly get up into this. So maybe what we can do here would be, let's see. So we want to hold that. And he's still moving. He's going to be moving right on through here. So I'd say, let's see. Well, I say let's do this. Let's take this drawing and let's duplicate split halfway. Now this drawing was also 10 frames, but now we've got two 5-frame increments. We'll take the first one where his expression is starting to change here, and we'll break this up. Now 5-frame increments don't tend to break up easily into twos, so you could take the advantage here and say, well, why don't we make this 4 frames so that we can have, 2-frame in between. And maybe the same thing here. Instead of letting that be 5-frame, let's let that be 4. I would say having even frame increments is just going to be smarter anyway. All right, so let's then come in here, and we know we're going from there to there. All right, so we can erase the stuff and then know that we're going to get into this next drawing. So then we can make our in-between with the to get up into this drawing. Yeah. Let's see, this is a 4-frame space. So his mouth is kind of, so we can have his mouth start to open here. So we're going there to there to there. Now I'd say, okay, so we're getting to there. So what we could do here, let's see, that's our big open mouth here. Ding, ding, ding. Well, we could do a duplicate split halfway on this drawing. So now, let's say we're getting into that. So this in between, which is starting to lead into that, this is where we can do this in between. This is between that that initial drawing where he's looking to where he's starting to change his expression. It's real subtle because we're kind of really slow here, I think. Here his mouth is closed. So it's really just barely going to start to open here. Just barely. So we're going there to there to there. And it's getting right on up into here. Now I'd say here we can do the same thing. We can do a double duplicate split halfway again because we're getting into this, but we split that with two of the same drawing, and then we'll make this in between working into that last position here. So we do that in between. The duplicate split halfway is just basically copying that drawing to cover the space of time that you put. In this case, I had 4 frames on these drawings, so by splitting them, splitting them halfway, that means that I have 2 drawings on 2s. That's the exact same drawing, but I'm changing one of them. I'm changing the one that leads out and making it an in-between. And the reason why I do the duplicate split halfway like this is so I don't have to trace the whole head again. It's like it's kind of already done for me. Now let's play the whole thing. Yeah, you see how we get into that wide open look on his face, the number of in-betweens. So, it's going to be smoother because you're not, you're using the duplication tool, so it keeps the tracing consistent. You don't have to worry about anything jittering too much. Whenever you have to trace back something, to some degree there may be a little bit of boiling on the drawing because you can't trace it perfectly. But that's okay. In some ways, that is a quality that adds a little bit to the animation. All right, so now here his mouth is completely open here, and that's saying 5 frames right there. So he gets up into there and blinks. All right, so I'd say this one also, let's take this down to 4 frames, and let's do the same thing with this. Let's duplicate split halfway, taking that 4 frame space and breaking it up into 2 drawings like that. But we'll use this first one as a means to in between from here to here. So we'll get on that drawing and we'll in between the things that are different. So in this case, the eyebrows are going to go up a little more. The eyes are going to widen a little bit more, and his mouth is going to open a little bit more. So and the digital platform is such a, I find it as a traditional animator, someone who came out of having to animate everything by hand and draw everything by hand. I find the digital platform to be very efficient, time efficient, and very helpful, and it makes the process a lot easier and a lot faster. And Lord knows that with animation being as labor intensive as it is, anything we can do to cut down on the amount of work that we're going to have to do in a scene is certainly highly desired. Now I could put more in-betweens, for instance, in, so we'll play that, see how that looks. I can certainly put more in-betweens in between any areas to like soften things even more. So, like for instance, as his mouth is opening, I could settle that even more if I wanted to, and in some cases, that might be a good thing to do. So I can decide about that. But you can see already that just with these in betweens that have been added, that it's giving a little softer feel to the action. Let's see. Um, bring this over here where you can see it. Okay. See just a little bit of softness in the movement on his face. That's starting to bring it to life a little bit more, where you can see that shift. See, the more in betweens that you're going to use to get the character's expression to change, the more you soften that action. Now you can see also that I've decreased a few frames where I had things that were 5 frames. I made them 4, but I only did that to be able to stay on 2s instead of bringing things down to 1s. I have it on 2s, but once again, that's an individual choice. It's not a matter of like, oh, there's some formula to get you there. It's not, you are kind of doing what looks good, and like I said, because you can see it instantly, you can make some choices about, does that look good? Is it too fast? Is it too slow? Can I pad things out more? If you need more drawing somewhere, just be a matter of adding those drawings. You can immediately look at it. If you find that it looks like it's too many drawings, you can take some out. And that's really the beauty of working digitally, is that you have that flexibility. This is just something that we did not have in the old days, with animation having to be shot on film and timing it in an exposure sheet and everything. And though I do definitely still think that the old way of doing something certainly worked great. So it's not like it didn't work. And if you're in a scenario where you are working that way and you're having to use an exposure sheet and everything, that's great. I think it's all good and helpful. I don't think it's necessarily bad. For cartoons today, that where you look at it and looking at animated films that are being made, on TV or what have you, generally speaking, the way those things are done, usually exposure sheets are still being used. I have some friends who are exposed sheet timers, and particularly when animated productions are sent overseas, we time out the sheets so that the animators overseas can follow them to get the timing right. It's a good way for them to do the work. So sheet timing is not something that has gone away completely, and hopefully it never will. But it is nice to have this method of working, particularly if you're doing your own stuff. It's just easier that you can look at it and see whether or not it's feeling right to you, that the feel of the animation is there, because you can be a great judge of that, and others can look at it as well, and you can get comments. You can show something to someone and see what kind of reactions they're going to have about it. Plus, you can also look at other scenes that you've seen other animators do and see, like, are you in the ballpark in terms of how things are moving. You can pick up things also from looking at other animation and even stop framing it and looking like, how are they getting from one drawing to the next. And those are things that you can implement in your own work. All right, so let's see. We're getting over to here. Now, see, that's 3 frames there when he closes his eyes. So I would say I'm going to make this 4 just so that I can split it again like I did before. Duplicate, split halfway so that I can close the eyes on 2s. Because it just, it's not going to be easy to. I can do it on 1s. And like I said, you can do stuff on 1s. I mean, 1s are great. One of my teachers, Richard Williams, loved to work on 1s. He always he swore by it. But I must say, he was maybe one of the most disciplined animators I know, and certainly his work ethic was above reproach. I never seen anyone who put so much work into what they would do. I never really thought that it was necessary to work as hard as Richard Williams would work, but he really proved to me anyway that if you are willing to put in the extra effort, you can really you can make your work look amazing. Okay, now here's something like, let's say for the eyes are going to come back open. Let's say I wanted to use um, this drawing here where the eyes are coming back open again, but use it on the other side here. So I could do this. I could come over here and go add after. So now what I just did was I just added a 2-frame space in here. Then what I can do is I can take this drawing here and I can select it, copy, and then go over here to where the new drawing is and paste it. So now I've got this. He closes his eyes, he opens his eyes, and up to here. And that's 2s now, so I didn't even have to draw that. So let's see if we play this. Okay, so you see he blinks there, but now I have that 2-frame blink there that I didn't. So yeah, you just save yourself work. there's no there's nothing dishonest about saving work, saving time. I am a big believer that anything you can do to make your life easy, I would suggest you do it, because Lord knows animation is plenty of work. Yeah, so you see he looks, and you got the blinks in this. So you see we're smoothing this out nicely. And also, too, another thing, see, there are holes in here. We have holes, like, our first hold is 6 frames. The second hold is 8 frames. The third hold is 10 frames. And now we go over here to this look, which is another 8 frames. So it's interesting to see how many holes we have in here. You can have holes in your scene where nothing's going on. Now, sometimes you might want to move things through a hole or have things happening while something's held. But you can get away with little holes. It doesn't hurt the scene. The characters think. So it's okay to have them hold a little bit. I would just say that, if something feels like it's an uncomfortably long amount of time that you're holding, then you might want to have something else going on while that's happening. You could break it up with a blink or something. So now, now we're going to go from here into this quick move. Now, these drawings here are on 2s. If you recall before, we put this on 1s to see how fast we get away. Now, I'd say here, to get into this move, we've got here an 8-frame hold. Now, I would say you could add a drawing in here. Let's see. So we got let's see. Okay, so boom, 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 and then he goes into there. Okay, so this hold is about 8 frames here. So what we could do, what I see here is I see a slowing out, or a quick slow out, or maybe even a 1-frame slow out. Now, what that mean by that would be, if you were to chart this drawing, let's say this drawing here is that, and let's say we draw a line down, and then this drawing, the next one, would be down here. So if you were to look at the space between these 2 lines, I'd say you could have an in-between, but you might want to have it closer to the previous drawing like this. So there's a bigger jump between that first drawing and the next one, or it's short, a very small distance, and then the next drawing is a bigger gap in there. So that's what that chart would look like. So I'm going to erase this. So if I were to do something like that, then what I could do here is I could say add a drawing. So that's what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add, or I could take, actually, you know what I could do is I could say split halfway. Add split halfway now. So if I click on this, so what it's doing here is it's taking this part of the drawing and holding onto it, and it's adding a space in here, you see. So, but it's splitting that halfway. So one of these is 4 frames, one of these is 2. Or both of these is 4 frames, I'm sorry. So what we're going to do is do your in-between, but what we're going to do is the in-between is going to be closer to the first drawing. So what I'm going to do is start to lead out of that head, but I'm going to have the head closer to the first drawing. See, so the space from here to here to here, that the space in the middle, you can see his head is going to be closer to the beginning of this move. I could rough in, maybe just lightly rough in the hair here. Maybe do just a light image here. The nose, maybe we'll just, so you can see, like if you judge the distances here, you can see that the head is going to be kind of pretty much closer to that first drawing, ding ding, and then the drawing we're getting to is further away. So that's far from here to here, but the middle drawing is closer to the first one, like that. Now, as far as the eyes go, I could do a halfway. So like the eyes would probably be right in here somewhere. And I could start to close the eyes there if I want. And the mouth, you know, I could start to maybe bring the mouth down, you know, because see, you don't have, once again, you don't have to have everything moving at the same rates. The eyebrows might still be up like this. And when I get a little bit of something here like I got now, then I can just run this and see how does that feel, because I've got something, a part of an in-between in there where I can see whether that, yeah, see, that kind of feels nice. We're leading out of that drawing, so it's not so what's the word I want to look at? It's not so abrupt. Now what I think that since that's 4 frames, these are 4 frame spaces, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down to 2, and I'm going to add 2 frames more to this to make it 6 frames. So that's going to be 6 frames, 2 frames, 2 frames. So now let's look at that. Yeah, see? Because see, he's starting to move fast, and I don't want to have that in-between drawing like we stick on it, so I want to move it a little faster. But it covers that space nicely. Yeah. All right. So now let's go back to that frame. Let's see this one here. And let me just make this bigger again so I can see what I'm doing. Right. Okay, so go in here and finish this off. Okay. Yeah. Z-da-da-doo. There we go. In here and harden up the lines. Okay. Okay. Sometimes, you can favor a drawing on one side or the other. When you're coming out and moving into a new position, you can favor, say that, and that's kind of what I'm doing here. Is I'm favoring the drawing that I'm coming out of, meaning that I'm closer to that drawing with the in between that I'm making. And so it gives a kind of a slowing out effect, like I'm speeding up as I'm moving away from that previous drawing. And then, of course, everything else is just in between. So the body, the clothes and everything. I think there you can just, you know, put everything kind of halfway. You know, should be fine. Say there, there. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. See, it's a nice flow there. And see, all that's on twos. So, yeah. And then we get over into here. Let's see, I believe that's 3 frames. Yeah, so we're going to start to slow down here. Okay. But let's look at this again. Let's see. So let's see the full thing. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, as he gets over into that, and I think we're probably even going to soften it more as we get into that last part of the action. We might make some changes. A lot of times, as you're working too, sometimes as you're going, you think, oh, you can do some other things. So I don't hesitate to make changes because when you're in the line test stage, obviously you got opportunity to make changes still until you're done. So yeah, yeah, I think that's starting to look pretty nice. Okay, great. Okay, all right then. We'll stop here once again. We don't want to get the scenes too long. I like to rather keep them keep these lessons in a 30-minute area roughly. All right, so I will see you folks tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day. And we will resume with part 5, I guess, should be tomorrow. Have a good evening.